So we're with a nonprofit magazine oriented around conservation and forestry,
Cool.
and we really just want to get people's opinions, see what they know and what they think about the state of the forests. So my first question would be, what do you think is the main thing or the main threat to our forests right now?
Well, according to last summer or the last year, it was kids playing with firecrackers. But I mean, I don't. I think climate change probably more than anything. Dried up forests. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, do you know any people, or were you personally affected by the fires in any way?
Well, of course, yeah. I mean, beyond the smoke and all that stuff, I'm originally from California. Don't blame me. Um, but yeah, my parents' house burned down last year in the Tubbs fire in Santa Rosa, and then my dad took his life as a result. So there's
Wow.
effects for sure,
Yeah.
and it's terrible to see things like the campfire happening where the whole community of elderly people are, dying. So it's just gonna get worse at this point.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that there are certain things that we can do to prevent these fires? Should we take action to, try to lessen their effects? Or, how do you feel about the potential for forestry practices, or, the role of timber companies even in doing some of those things to maybe mitigate the fire damage?
Yeah, well, I mean, you hear things like Trump saying that it's a result of mismanagement of the forests, and it's ironic to hear that because um, the federal government is responsible for putting the money into the management of the forest. So, but I think ultimately it'd be helpful if our federal government, including the fearless leader of our country, would say things like, "Hey, we should probably curb climate change, so that things aren't dried up like tinderboxes." So I think it really results from more of a mentality shift and conscious awareness of what we're doing to the planet more than like one way of managing or another. I think I'm not an expert, but
No, that's great. I really appreciate, yeah, your opinion about that. Um, do you have anything against, like, if there is all of this work that could be done in trying to mitigate the fires? Is there any reason that the timber industry shouldn't be involved also, if that's potentially part of a solution? Or how do you feel about that?
yeah, I mean, I think that the timber industry is just responding to supply and the demand, and I've personally used to be an environmental activist and hated the timber industry for what it was worth, but now it's just a realization that we all use toilet paper and we all write on paper, and they're just responding to our demand for it. So it's really more about a consumer shift, than putting more responsibility on them than a sustainable business model can happen. And sure, if they want to go out of business because they have too much responsibility, I'd be happy to use something other than toilet paper. But you know, I think what it boils down to is we need to help them find out what they're responsible for and what we're responsible for. And things like the regulations in place for them to plant a tree for every tree they cut down. I mean, seems reasonable to me. But if there's more that they need to be doing, that should be something we should be legislating on fairly.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're kind of concerned about just things continuing to be sustainable, or
Yeah.
practices being sustainable. I don't know. Have you heard about
Yeah.
some of these ideas about thinning or collecting, and reducing brush,
Yeah.
or even doing prescribed burns? I don't
Yeah.
know if you have an opinion or
Yeah,
how
I
you
mean, I've
feel about those
definitely,
things.
I was an environmental study major, so I learned a lot about that. And at one point, there was good arguments on both sides for, different types of forest practices. I think nobody really had a good argument for clear cutting. So in my opinion, I think clear cutting's a no. Like, that's probably a no-win.
That
But
that's really
yeah,
the bad side of
yeah.
what you think of when you think of the timber
Yeah, I
industry.
mean, you get soil erosion, you get loss of species, you get migration of species. I mean, it's just a terrible practice. Not to mention, we need some trees for oxygen and the planet's survival. So yeah, I just think it's a bad practice to get into. So some sort of, mitigation, like tree planting, but yeah, also like maybe thinning and selectively cutting is probably a happy medium that I've always been a fan of. It's just sad to drive to the coast and see a nice wall of trees as a facade. So then you look through the trees and you see a nice big clear cut, and that makes me sad.
Well, I think you answered all my questions
All
very
right,
well. I
cool.
really appreciate it. Will
Yeah.
you tell me your name one more
Yeah,
time?
sure, Ryan Ao.
Awesome.